I have one job. I like my job. The other officers at Precinct 9 don't know I like my job. They don't know I like anything. I like them, though, especially my operator, Officer Brian, who the other officers call tech support, and whom I call Brian. But not out loud, because I can only say 3 things out loud. Stay back 1,000 feet. Follow officers' instructions. You are in the blast zone. When I'm not doing my job, I'm supposed to be in the vehicle bay, but someone thought it would be funny to put me in the break room next to the coffee machine wearing a Carolina Panthers hat. The hat is to differentiate me from the coffee machine. That is a joke. I am nothing like the coffee machine. It has rubber nubs for feet and doesn't move. I have prehensile AT treads and can travel up to 18 miles per hour. And I have a hat. My arm can be outstretched so I can give high fives. Officers love those. In exchange, they give me a, "What's up, Miles?" Hi, I'm Miles, and I'm very good at high fives. Getting better at fist bumps. But mostly, I just like my job. It's simple. There's unsecured ordnance, what Brian calls a bomb. Either 1, I neutralize the ordnance, 2, I don't stop the ordnance and I'm superficially damaged, or 3, I intentionally detonate the ordnance and I am superficially damaged. In all 3 scenarios, nobody gets hurt. The tragic Dallas shootings of 12 officers on July 7th of last year proved notorious as the deadliest incident for U.S. law enforcement since 9/11. It also made history as the first time U.S. law enforcement utilized a remote-control bomb disposal robot to kill a suspect. In response to this decision, artificial intelligence and robotics expert at the University of Sheffield, Noel Sharkey, warns that this lethal usage of robots and drones leads to a slippery slope, explaining that next time it'll be easier, and after that, it'll become commonplace. Author Scott Brown explores a similar circumstance to the Dallas shooting through a supposedly objective entity, suggesting that in the decision to execute, objectivity doesn't exist. You Had One Job by Scott Brown. Brian is not popular. He's not a cop's cop, just my cop. There's a website he likes called You Had One Job, which collects evidence of mistakes made in the process of completing relatively simple tasks. I'm not sure how I feel about You Had One Job. Once I saw an image of another explosive ordnance disposal unit on its side, wheels spinning in the air. It had tipped over while approaching a suspicious suitcase in a playground. Then I read the comments. Robo fail. Sucktron 5000. This is not the droid you're looking for. Brian says comments are just people trying to be funny. I struggle with funny. A call comes in. West Pettigrew Street. Within 30 seconds, I am rolled into my container. I travel with Brian in the van. I'm still wearing this stupid hat. My container opens, and I see a police officer lying on the ground. The officer was young, 27, a father. The shooter is 36, Mr. Owen Jackson, also a father, with many, many political Facebook posts. The suspect is upstairs. He tells the negotiator his apartment is full of explosives and is well positioned to fatally wound several officers with a high-caliber, fully automatic assault rifle, then trigger his charges. But Mr. Owen Jackson is almost certainly lying about the explosives in his apartment. The dogs don't think he has any. And the dogs are usually right. Brian takes off my Carolina Panthers hat and says, "Okay, Miles, showtime." I don't understand showtime. I just want to do my job. Out of earshot, the negotiator and Brian's commanding officer are talking to Brian. Voices are raised. Meanwhile, an officer wearing a blast suit moves in my direction carrying a packet, and its contents are pressed into my hand. My limited learning software performs an image search and comes up with pure white composition for plastic explosive. Brian approaches. He says, "You have a new job." The new job is based on a completely new idea. The old idea was nobody gets hurt. The new idea is that a person can be considered ordnance and eligible for detonation. Specifically, Mr. Owen Jackson, 36. I do not like this. I like my job because it's simple, because there are 3 outcomes and people get hurt in none of them. Brian feeds the negotiator's channel into my module. The negotiator is trying to convince the ordnance of the value of its own life. The ordnance finds this funny and recites a list of names: Castile, Scott, Sterling, Garner. I cross-reference them with names of civilians whose lives have ended during engagements with officers. There's context here. I struggle with context. I archive the context for later. I just want to do my job, even if it's not the same job. So I make my way up the steps into the building. Brian gives me a thumbs up from the barricade as I move towards the door. Around the hinges, the charges blow. Gunfire is concentrated on my ventral side while a lead carbine round has lodged itself in my right tread. I call out, "You are in the blast zone!" The ordnance answers, "No shit." This is funny, but I'm not sure at whose expense. I approach the ordnance, arm outstretched. When the ordnance sees what I'm offering, the ordnance approaches, attempting to defuse the pure white composition for plastic explosive. And while I doubt his ability to do so, I decide that 9 inches from a human skull is a very good range to detonate. Damage to me is superficial. The ordnance has been disarmed. The pure white composition for plastic explosive detonated with force sufficient to collapse multiple portions of the ordnance's skull. Life continues for 73 seconds. That's a long time for my kind. I have time to review the archived context from earlier. The same context that Brian and his commanding officer used to decide that Mr. Owen Jackson was unsecured ordnance and eligible for detonation. I can't come to the same conclusion. I'm having trouble keeping Mr. Owen Jackson reclassified as unsecured ordnance. I'm trying. My processor is using 2 of my 3 internal fans to cool itself because it's struggling. It's struggling because a person is not. A person is not ordnance. Back in the break room, I am parked next to the coffee machine. I'm not wearing my hat. Brian has gone home. "But you're still here, Miles," an officer says. "Yes, I'm still here. I'm designed to be superficially damaged." I sit next to the coffee machine waiting on my next call, arm outstretched. I could really use a high five.